You don't need years to change your relationships. You need 30 days and the right approach. Most people wait for others to change, but the real transformation begins with you. In just 1 month, you can become the kind of person others feel safe with, inspired by, and drawn to. With better questions, deeper listening, and genuine interest, you can reshape how people respond to you. Stronger trust, better communication, more connection. It's not magic, it's intention. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind, and tell us, where are you watching from? If your relationships aren't working, don't look outward. Look inward. Change starts with the mirror. You wake up every morning with a choice. You can spend your day waiting for other people to be kinder, more understanding, more patient, or you can decide that today you will be the person who makes relationships better. Most people choose the first path. They complain about their spouse not listening. They get frustrated when their coworkers don't appreciate them. They wonder why their friends seem distant. And they wait. They wait for everyone else to change first. But here's what most people don't understand. The person who changes first wins, not because they get what they want, but because they become who they need to be. I learned this lesson the hard way. For years, I wondered why some conversations felt like pulling teeth while others flowed like water. Why some people seemed to light up when I walked into a room, while others barely looked up from their phones. I thought it was about them, their mood, their personality, their problems. I was wrong. The difference wasn't in them. The difference was in me. On the days when I showed up curious instead of critical, present instead of preoccupied, interested instead of interesting, everything changed. The same people, the same situations, but a completely different energy. Think about the last argument you had. Really think about it. What were you trying to prove? That you were right? That they were wrong? Now ask yourself this. How did that work out for you? When we focus on being right, we lose sight of being connected. When we focus on winning, we forget that relationships aren't competitions. They're collaborations. Here's the truth that changed everything for me. You cannot control how other people show up, but you have complete control over how you show up. And how you show up determines everything. If you show up defensive, people become offensive. If you show up judgmental, people become guarded. If you show up distracted, people feel dismissed. But if you show up with genuine interest, warmth, and presence, people respond in kind. This isn't about being fake or manipulative. This is about being intentional, about recognizing that every interaction is a choice between building a bridge or building a wall. Most people build walls without even realizing it. They interrupt because they're excited to share their own story. They give advice before understanding the problem. They check their phone while someone is talking. Small things, innocent things, wall-building things. But what if you became the person who builds bridges instead? What if every conversation became an opportunity to make someone feel heard, valued, and understood? Let me ask you this. When was the last time someone made you feel truly seen? Not just acknowledged, but genuinely understood? How did that person make you feel? They probably looked you in the eye. They asked follow-up questions. They remembered details from previous conversations. They made you feel like you were the most important person in the room. That's the person you can become. Not by changing who you are, but by changing how you show up. Starting today, make this your mission. Be the person others feel safe with. Be the person who listens more than they speak. Be the person who asks better questions. Be the person who remembers what matters to the people who matter to you. This journey begins with a simple recognition. The quality of your relationships is a direct reflection of the quality of your presence. When you become more present, your relationships become more powerful. You don't need to wait for permission. You don't need anyone else to go first. You don't need perfect conditions or the right timing. You just need to begin with you, right here, right now. Because the moment you decide to become the kind of person who makes relationships better, your relationships start getting better. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's simply the natural result of showing up differently in a world that desperately needs people who care enough to try. Your relationships are waiting for you to lead them. The question is, are you ready to begin? Listening is more powerful than any advice. Learn how to give people the experience of being truly understood and why that's the fastest path to connection. Everyone talks, few people listen, and almost no one listens well. Think about your last 5 conversations. How much time did you spend waiting for your turn to speak? How often did you interrupt with your own story? How many times did you offer solutions before fully understanding the problem? Most of us listen just enough to respond. We hear the words, but we miss the person behind them. Real listening is different. Real listening is an act of love. It says, you matter, your thoughts matter, your feelings matter. And right now, nothing is more important to me than understanding you. But here's what most people don't understand. When you make someone feel heard, you don't just improve the conversation, you transform the relationship. I remember meeting a man at a conference who seemed angry about everything, his job, his family, his situation. Other people avoided him. They saw his frustration and walked the other way. But I decided to listen, really listen. Not to his complaints, but to the pain underneath them. And slowly, his story emerged. A recent divorce, financial struggles, a teenage son who wouldn't speak to him. I didn't offer advice. I didn't try to fix anything. I simply listened with my whole attention. And something remarkable happened. His anger melted away, his shoulders relaxed, his voice softened. By the end of our conversation, he looked at me and said, "Thank you for hearing me. No one has done that in months." That's the power of being heard. It heals. It connects. It transforms both the speaker and the listener. So how do you listen in a way that makes people feel truly heard? First, put away the distractions. Your phone, your thoughts about what to make for dinner, your mental to-do list. When someone is speaking to you, they deserve your full presence. Second, listen for feelings, not just facts. People don't just want to share information. They want to share their experience. When someone says, "My boss gave me another project today," they're not just reporting news. They might be expressing frustration, pride, overwhelm, or excitement. Third, resist the urge to immediately relate. When someone shares a struggle, your first instinct might be to say, "Oh, the same thing happened to me." But that shifts the focus from them to you. Instead, stay with their experience. Ask questions that help them explore their own feelings. Fourth, reflect what you hear, not word for word, but the essence. It sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed by everything on your plate right now. This shows you're not just hearing their words, you're understanding their world. Fifth, give them space to be human. Don't rush to cheer them up or fix their problems. Sometimes people just need permission to feel what they're feeling without judgment or solutions. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt completely heard by another person? How did it feel? Did you want to spend more time with that person? Did you trust them more? Did you feel closer to them? That's what you can give to every person in your life. The gift of being heard, the experience of being understood, the feeling that their inner world matters to someone else. Here's the beautiful paradox. When you focus on understanding others, they become more interested in understanding you. When you make others feel heard, they want to hear from you. When you give people your attention, they naturally give you theirs. This isn't manipulation. This is connection. This is how relationships deepen and trust grows. Starting today, practice the art of generous listening. In every conversation, ask yourself, how can I help this person feel more heard? Listen for what they're not saying. Notice their energy. Pay attention to their emotions. Because in a world full of noise, the person who truly listens becomes unforgettable. And the people who feel heard by you will never forget how you made them feel. Your ears can change someone's day. Your attention can change someone's heart. Your listening can change everything. Want people to open up? Ask questions that show you care, not about facts, but about feelings. Curiosity builds bridges where silence leaves walls. The difference between a conversation and an interrogation is simple: genuine curiosity. Most people ask questions to gather information. What do you do for work? Where are you from? How long have you lived here? These questions fill silence, but they don't create connection. Real curiosity goes deeper. It seeks to understand not just what someone does, but who they are. Not just where they've been, but how they feel about where they're going. I learned this from a taxi driver in Chicago. Instead of the usual small talk about weather, he asked me, "What's the most interesting thing that happened to you this week?" That one question led to a 30-minute conversation I still remember years later. He wasn't gathering facts. He was exploring my world, and in doing so, he made me feel interesting, valued, and understood. That's what great questions do. They don't just extract information. They invite connection. But here's what most people don't understand. The best questions aren't about getting answers. They're about giving people the gift of being known. When you ask someone, "What's been on your mind lately?" you're not looking for a schedule update. You're inviting them to share what matters to them right now. When you ask, "What's the best part of your day?" you're not seeking a timeline. You're discovering what brings them joy. When you ask, "What's something you're excited about?" you're not requesting an agenda. You're exploring their hopes and dreams. These questions work because they focus on feelings, not facts. They explore the inner world, not just the outer circumstances. Think about the people you feel closest to. What kinds of questions do they ask you? Do they want to know what you did or how you felt about what you did? Do they ask about your schedule or about your dreams? The people who make us feel most connected are those who are genuinely curious about our inner experience. They want to understand not just our story, but our perspective on our story. Here's the beautiful truth. Everyone has something fascinating about them. Everyone has struggles, dreams, insights, and experiences that could teach you something. But most people never share these deeper parts of themselves because no one asks the right questions. Your curiosity can unlock doors that facts alone never will. But let me ask you this. Are you asking questions because you're genuinely interested, or because you think you should? People can sense the difference. Fake curiosity feels like an interview. Real curiosity feels like an invitation. Genuine curiosity comes from a simple recognition. This person in front of me has lived a completely different life than I have. They've seen things I haven't seen, felt things I haven't felt, learned things I haven't learned. What could I discover if I really listened to their story? When you approach people with that mindset, your questions become different. Instead of, "What do?" you might ask, "What drew you to that kind of work?" Instead of, "How was your weekend?" you might ask, "What was the highlight of your weekend?" Small changes, big differences. Here's what happens when you become genuinely curious about people. They start opening up. They share stories they don't usually tell. They reveal dreams they rarely discuss. They let you see parts of themselves they keep hidden from most people. And in return, they become curious about you. They want to know your story. They ask about your dreams. They're interested in your perspective. Curiosity is contagious. When you're genuinely interested in others, they become genuinely interested in you. Starting today, replace your fact-finding questions with feeling-exploring questions. Instead of asking what someone did, ask how they felt about what they did. Instead of asking about events, ask about experiences. Because the moment you become genuinely curious about people, people become genuinely open with you. And that's where real relationships begin. Most arguments don't need a winner. They need a listener. This chapter teaches how to drop the need to be right and focus on being kind. You're in the middle of a conversation when someone says something you know is wrong. Maybe it's a fact you're certain about. Maybe it's an opinion you strongly disagree with. Your mind immediately jumps to correction mode. Stop right there. Ask yourself this question. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be connected? Most of the time, you can't have both. I spent years thinking that correcting people was helping them. When someone shared incorrect information, I felt obligated to set the record straight. When someone expressed an opinion I disagreed with, I felt compelled to explain why they were wrong. I thought I was being helpful. I was actually being harmful. Every correction, no matter how gentle, sends the same message. You're wrong, and I'm right. And when people feel wrong, they don't feel connected. They feel judged. Here's what I learned. People don't connect with your intelligence. They connect with your kindness. Think about the last time someone corrected you in public. How did it feel? Did you feel grateful for the information? Or did you feel embarrassed, defensive, maybe even a little angry? Now think about how you felt toward that person afterward. Did the correction bring you closer together? Or did it create a small distance between you? Most corrections create disconnection, even when they're technically accurate. But here's what most people don't understand. You don't have to choose between truth and kindness. You can honor both by changing your approach. Instead of correcting, try connecting. Instead of focusing on what's wrong with their statement, focus on what's right about their intention. When someone shares information that's not quite accurate, you might say, "That's interesting. I've heard something similar, though I think there might be some different perspectives on that." You've acknowledged their contribution without making them wrong. When someone expresses an opinion you disagree with, you might say, "I can see why you'd feel that way. I've had a different experience, but I appreciate you sharing your perspective." You've honored their viewpoint without abandoning your own. The goal isn't to agree with everything. The goal is to respond in a way that keeps the relationship safe. For honest conversation, let me ask you this. What's more important, being right about a fact or being trusted with someone's thoughts? Winning an argument or strengthening a relationship? I'm not suggesting you become a doormat or abandon your values. There are times when truth matters more than comfort, but those times are rarer than we think. Most of the things we feel compelled to correct aren't life or death issues. They're preferences, perspectives, or minor details that don't actually matter in the bigger picture of the relationship. Here's a simple test. Before you correct someone, ask yourself 3 questions. First, is this correction necessary for their safety or well-being? Second, will this correction strengthen our relationship? Third, am I correcting them to help them or to prove that I'm right? If you can't answer yes to the first 2 questions, consider letting it go. But what about when correction is necessary? How do you deliver truth without damaging connection? Start with curiosity instead of certainty. Instead of, "That's not right," try, "Help me understand your thinking on that." Instead of, "You're wrong about that," try, "I've seen some different information on that topic. What's been your experience?" Ask questions that invite exploration rather than statements that shut down conversation. Make it a joint investigation rather than a judgment. And here's the most important part. Focus on preserving their dignity. You can disagree with someone's ideas without attacking their intelligence. You can correct information without correcting the person. Remember, every interaction is an opportunity to make someone feel valued or to make them feel diminished. Every response is a choice between building trust or building walls. The people who master relationships understand this. Connection matters more than correction. Being kind matters more than being right. Making people feel safe matters more than making people feel wrong. Starting today, practice the art of generous disagreement. When you feel the urge to correct, pause and ask, "How can I respond in a way that honors both truth and kindness?" Because the moment you choose connection over correction, your relationships transform. People start sharing more openly with you. They trust you with their real thoughts. They see you as safe, and that's worth more than being right about anything. Everyone speaks in emotions, not just words. You'll learn how to read people's tone, energy, and needs so you can meet them where they are. Words are only half the conversation. The other half happens in the spaces between words, in tone, energy, body language, and the emotions that color every interaction. Most people listen to words and miss the music. They hear what someone says, but miss what someone means. They respond to the surface while the real conversation happens underneath. But the people who truly connect, they speak both languages, the language of words and the language of emotions. I learned this lesson from my daughter when she was 7 years old. She came home from school and announced, "I hate math. It's stupid, and I never want to do it again." My first instinct was to respond to her words, to explain why math was important, to encourage her to keep trying, to solve the problem she was describing. But something made me pause. I looked at her face. I noticed her slumped shoulders. I heard the frustration in her voice. And I realized she wasn't really talking about math. She was talking about feeling defeated. So instead of responding to her words, I responded to her emotion. "It sounds like you had a really tough day with math. That must have felt frustrating." Her whole body relaxed. "Yes, Mrs. Johnson made me go to the board, and I didn't know the answer, and everyone was looking at me." Now we were having the real conversation, not about math, but about embarrassment. Not about homework, but about feeling small in front of her classmates. That's what happens when you learn to speak someone's emotional language. You get to the heart of what they're really trying to tell you. Think about your own conversations. How often do people say one thing but mean something else? How often do they use words to express feelings they can't quite name? When someone says, "I'm fine," but their voice sounds strained, they're not talking about their state of being. They're talking about their need for space. When someone says, "whatever," but their tone sounds hurt, they're not expressing indifference. They're expressing disappointment. When someone says, "I don't care," but they keep talking about it, they're not showing you apathy. They're showing you exactly what they care about most. The words people use often hide the emotions they feel. But if you learn to listen with your eyes and your heart, not just your ears, you'll hear what they're really saying. So how do you learn someone's emotional language? First, pay attention to their energy. Are they expansive or contracted? Animated or subdued? Rushing or slow? Energy tells you more about someone's inner state than their words ever will. Second, notice their tone. Is it tight or relaxed? Elevated or flat? Sharp or soft? Tone carries the feeling behind the words. Third, watch their body. Are their shoulders tense or loose? Are they leaning in or pulling back? Are their hands open or closed? The body never lies about how someone feels. Fourth, listen for what they're not saying. What topics do they avoid? What questions make them uncomfortable? What subjects make them light up? The spaces in conversation are often more revealing than the words themselves. But here's what most people don't understand. Reading someone's emotional language isn't about becoming a mind reader. It's about becoming more sensitive to the human being in front of you. When you notice that someone's voice sounds tired, you might say, "You sound like you've had a long day." You're not diagnosing, you're acknowledging. When you see that someone's energy seems low, you might ask, "How are you feeling right now?" You're not analyzing, you're caring. When you sense that someone is holding back, you might offer, "I'm here if you want to talk about what's really going on." You're not pushing, you're providing safety. The goal isn't to decode everything perfectly. The goal is to show people that you see them, not just their words, but their whole experience. Let me ask you this. When was the last time someone noticed how you were feeling before you told them? How did that make you feel? Did it make you want to open up more? Did it make you feel understood? That's what you can give to every person in your life. The experience of being seen. The feeling that someone cares enough to notice not just what you say, but how you say it. Starting today, practice speaking both languages. Listen to words, but also listen to emotions. Respond to content, but also respond to feelings. Because when you learn to speak someone's emotional language, you don't just improve communication, you create connection at the deepest level. Recognition doesn't just feel good, it changes lives. We'll explore how to express appreciation in ways that lift others up and deepen your bond. Everyone you meet is carrying an invisible sign that reads, make me feel important. The tragedy is that most people walk past that sign every day without reading it, but you don't have to be most people. Appreciation is the fastest way to someone's heart, not flattery, not empty compliments. Sincere, specific appreciation that shows you've really noticed something valuable about them. I learned this from a hotel doorman in New York. Every morning for a week, he greeted me with genuine warmth. "Good morning, Mr. Carnegie. I hope you have a wonderful day." Nothing unusual there. But on my last day, I stopped and said, "I want you to know that your smile has been the best part of my mornings here. You have a gift for making people feel welcome." His eyes lit up, his posture straightened. He beamed. "You know, sir, in 15 years of doing this job, you're the first guest who's ever said anything like that to me." 15 years, thousands of guests. One moment of sincere appreciation, that's the power of recognition. It doesn't just make someone's day, it can change how they see themselves and their worth. But here's what most people don't understand. There's a world of difference between appreciation and flattery. Flattery is shallow, general, and often untrue. Appreciation is deep, specific, and always genuine. Flattery says, "You're amazing." Appreciation says, "The way you handled that difficult customer with such patience and grace was remarkable. You turned a frustrated person into a satisfied one." Flattery focuses on the person. Appreciation focuses on their actions, choices, or character. Flattery feels empty. Appreciation feels full. Think about the last time someone gave you genuine appreciation. Not a throwaway compliment, but specific recognition for something you did or a quality you demonstrated. How did it feel? Did it motivate you? Did it make you want to do more of whatever they appreciated? That's what sincere appreciation does. It doesn't just acknowledge the past, it encourages the future. So how do you give appreciation that truly matters? First, be specific. Instead of "great job," say, "The way you organized that presentation made complex information easy to understand. Your clear structure helped everyone follow along." Second, focus on effort and choice, not just results. "I noticed how you stayed calm when that meeting got heated." That took real self-control and helped keep everyone focused. Third, highlight character, not just performance. Your willingness to help Sarah with her project, even when you had your own deadlines, shows real generosity. Fourth, make it timely. Don't wait weeks to express appreciation. The closer your recognition is to the action, the more powerful it becomes. Fifth, make it personal. What specifically impressed you? How did their action affect you or others? Why does it matter? But let me ask you this. When was the last time you truly appreciated someone in your life? Not thank them for doing their job, but recognize them for who they are and how they show up in the world. Your spouse who listens to your daily frustrations without trying to fix everything. Your coworker who always has a positive attitude, even during stressful times. Your friend who remembers the small details that matter to you. These people are making your life better every day. Do they know it? Here's the beautiful truth. Appreciation costs nothing, but gives everything. It takes no money, little time, and minimal effort. But it can transform relationships, boost confidence, and create loyalty that lasts a lifetime. The people who master relationships understand this. Everyone needs to feel valued. Everyone wants to know that their efforts matter. Everyone craves recognition for their contributions. When you become someone who notices and acknowledges the good in others, something magical happens. People start showing you more of their best selves. They go out of their way to earn your appreciation. They feel motivated to live up to the person you see in them. But appreciation only works when it's sincere. People can sense authenticity from a mile away. They know the difference between manipulation and genuine recognition. So look for things to appreciate genuinely. Notice the small kindnesses. Acknowledge the daily efforts. Recognize the character qualities that often go unnoticed. Starting today, make it your mission to give at least one piece of sincere appreciation every day. Look for opportunities to recognize effort, acknowledge character, and celebrate the good you see in others, because in a world where criticism comes easily and praise comes rarely, the person who gives sincere appreciation becomes unforgettable. The people who feel truly appreciated by you will move mountains to keep earning that feeling. Assumptions kill connection. This chapter helps you identify and replace the silent stories that sabotage your relationships. Your mind is a story-making machine. Every day, it creates hundreds of narratives about why people do, what they're thinking, and what they really mean. The problem? Most of these stories are wrong. When your friend doesn't text you back immediately, your mind creates a story. Maybe they're upset with you. Maybe they're ignoring you on purpose. Maybe you said something wrong. When your coworker seems quiet during a meeting, your mind creates a story. Maybe they disagree with your ideas. Maybe they think you're incompetent. Maybe they're planning to undermine you. When your spouse seems distant after work, your mind creates a story. Maybe they're unhappy with you. Maybe they're having second thoughts about the relationship. Maybe you're not enough. These stories feel real. They feel logical. They feel true. But they're just assumptions dressed up as facts, and assumptions are relationship killers. I learned this lesson during a difficult period in my marriage. My wife had been distant for weeks. She came home from work tired and quiet. She went to bed early. She seemed uninterested in conversation. My mind created a story. She was unhappy with me. I had done something wrong. Our marriage was in trouble. Spent weeks walking on eggshells, trying to figure out what I had done and how to fix it. The tension grew. The distance increased. My assumptions were creating the very problem I was afraid of. Finally, I decided to do something radical. I asked her directly, "I've noticed you seem tired and distant lately. Is everything okay between us?" She looked surprised. "Between us? Oh, honey, everything's fine between us. I've just been dealing with this horrible situation at work. My boss has been impossible, and I've been bringing all that stress home with me." I didn't realize I was being distant. My story was completely wrong. She wasn't pulling away from me. She was dealing with her own challenges. She wasn't unhappy with our relationship. She was overwhelmed by her job, but my assumptions had nearly created a real problem where none existed. That's what assumptions do. They turn imaginary problems into real ones. They create distance where there should be closeness. They build walls where there should be bridges. Here's what most people don't understand. The stories your mind creates say more about your fears than about reality. When you assume someone is angry with you, you're revealing your fear of rejection. When you assume someone is judging you, you're revealing your fear of not being good enough. When you assume someone is ignoring you, you're revealing your fear of being unimportant. But what if you could replace those fear-based stories with curiosity-based questions? Instead of assuming why someone did something, what if you asked them? Instead of creating stories about what someone thinks, what if you found out? Instead of interpreting silence as rejection, what if you considered that they might be dealing with something completely unrelated to you? Let me ask you this. How many relationships have been damaged by assumptions that turned out to be wrong? How many arguments started because someone thought they knew what the other person meant? How many connections were lost because people made up stories instead of seeking truth? The cure for destructive assumptions is simple. Get curious instead of certain. When you notice yourself creating a story about someone's behavior, pause and ask, what else could this mean? What don't I know about their situation? How could I find out what's really going on? Replace, they must be, with, I wonder if. Replace, they obviously think, with, I'm curious about. But here's the most important part. When you decide to check your assumptions, do it with genuine curiosity, not accusation. Don't say, why are you being so quiet? Say, I noticed you seemed quiet today. Is everything okay? Don't say, you're obviously upset with me. Say, I want to make sure we're good. How are you feeling about things between us? The goal isn't to eliminate all assumptions. That's impossible. The goal is to hold your assumptions lightly and check them regularly. Starting today, practice catching yourself in assumption mode. When you notice your mind creating stories about someone's behavior, take a breath and ask, what evidence do I actually have for this story? What else could explain what I'm seeing? How could I find out what's really going on? Because the moment you choose curiosity over assumption, you open the door to understanding. And understanding is where real connection begins. Your relationships will transform when you stop believing everything you think and start seeking what's actually true. Your words can be a mirror or a sword. Learn how to speak in ways that affirm, inspire, and build trust, even during tough conversations. Words have power, not just to communicate information, but to shape reality, to build up or tear down, to heal or harm, to inspire or discourage. Every word you speak is a choice to make someone's day brighter or darker, a choice to build their confidence or chip away at it, a choice to speak life into them or to speak death. Most people use words carelessly. They speak without thinking about the impact. They say things in frustration that they don't really mean. They let their emotions drive their vocabulary. But the people who master relationships understand this. Words create worlds. The words you use don't just describe your relationships, they shape them. I learned this from a teacher who changed my life. I was struggling in her class, feeling defeated and ready to give up. Instead of focusing on what I was doing wrong, she said, "I see something special in you. You think differently than other students, and that's your strength. Don't try to be like everyone else. Learn to be the best version of yourself." Those words didn't just encourage me in that moment. They gave me a new story about who I could become. They planted seeds that grew for years afterward. That's what life-giving words do. They don't just make people feel good. They help people see possibilities they couldn't see before. So how do you speak life into people? First, focus on potential, not just performance. Instead of, "You're terrible at this," try, "You're learning." Every expert was once a beginner. Instead of, "You always mess up," try, "I know you're capable of better, and I'm here to help you get there." Second, highlight strengths, not just weaknesses. Instead of only pointing out what needs improvement, notice what's already working. "Your creativity in solving that problem was impressive," or "I admire your persistence." Third, speak to their future, not just their past. Instead of, "You've never been good at this," try, "I can see you getting stronger at this with practice." Instead of, "You always do this," try, "I know you can make a different choice next time." Fourth, use words that build rather than break. Replace "you're wrong" with "help me understand your thinking." Replace "that's a terrible idea" with "what if we tried a different approach?" Replace "you never listen" with "I need you to hear this." But let me ask you this. What words were spoken over you that shaped how you see yourself? Were they words of encouragement or discouragement? Words of possibility or limitation? Words of love or criticism? Now think about the words you speak. Over others, are you planting seeds of confidence or doubt? Are you painting pictures of their potential or their problems? Are you building them up or wearing them down? Here's what most people don't understand. People become what you consistently tell them they are. If you tell someone they're irresponsible, they start acting irresponsibly. If you tell someone they're thoughtful, they become more thoughtful. This isn't manipulation, it's recognition of a profound truth. We all live up or down to the expectations others place on us, especially the people whose opinions matter most. Your spouse needs to hear that they're valued, appreciated, and loved. Your children need to hear that they're capable, special, and important. Your friends need to hear that they matter, that they're good people, that you believe in them. But speaking life isn't just about encouragement. It's also about how you handle difficult conversations. When you need to address a problem, speak to the behavior, not the person. Instead of "you're being selfish," try, "that action felt selfish to me." Instead of "you're impossible," try, "this situation feels impossible to me right now." When you're frustrated, speak about your feelings, not their character. Instead of, "You're driving me crazy," try, "I'm feeling overwhelmed by this situation." Instead of, "You don't care," try, "I need to feel like this matters to you." When you disagree, speak about the issue, not the individual. Instead of, "You're wrong," try, "I see it differently." Instead of, "That's stupid," try, "I'm not sure that approach will work." The goal isn't to avoid all conflict or difficult conversations. The goal is to have those conversations in ways that preserve dignity and strengthen relationships. Starting today, pay attention to your words. Before you speak, ask yourself, will these words build this person up or tear them down? Will they create connection or distance? Will they speak life or death? Because in a world where words often wound, the person who consistently speaks life becomes a source of healing, hope, and transformation. Your words have the power to change someone's day, their perspective, and even their destiny. Use that power wisely. Conflict reveals character. We'll cover how to stay calm when emotions run high and why composure earns more respect than control ever could. The true test of your relationship skills isn't how you handle the good times. It's how you handle the moments when everything falls apart, when tensions rise, when voices get loud, when emotions explode, when someone you care about is upset, angry, or hurt. These are the moments that define relationships. Not the easy conversations, but the hard ones. Not the peaceful times, but the stormy ones. Most people lose themselves in conflict. They get defensive. They raise their voice. They say things they don't mean. They let emotions hijack their judgment. But there's another way. A way that builds trust, even in the middle of chaos. A way that strengthens relationships even during disagreements. It starts with understanding this truth. You cannot control how others react, but you can always control how you respond. I learned this lesson during one of the most difficult conversations of my career. A business partner was furious with me. He felt I had betrayed his trust. His anger was volcanic, loud, intense, and completely focused on me. My first instinct was to defend myself, to match his energy, to prove that he was wrong and I was right. But something made me pause. Instead of fighting back, I took a deep breath and said, "I can see that you're really hurt by this. Help me understand what happened from your perspective." The room went quiet. His anger didn't disappear, but it shifted. Instead of attacking, he started explaining. Instead of accusing, he started sharing his feelings. By staying calm, I gave him space to be human. By not defending, I invited him to open up. By remaining composed, I created safety in the storm. That's what emotional composure does. It doesn't eliminate conflict, it transforms it. But here's what most people don't understand. Staying calm in conflict isn't about suppressing your emotions. It's about managing them wisely. When someone is upset with you, their emotion is real. Their pain is valid. Your job isn't to dismiss their feelings or defend against their words. Your job is to create space for understanding. So how do you stay calm when everything in you wants to react? First, breathe intentionally. When emotions spike, breathing becomes shallow. Deep, slow breaths calm your nervous system and give you space to think. Second, listen for the emotion behind the words. When someone is angry, they're usually hurt. When someone is critical, they're usually afraid. When someone is attacking, they're usually protecting. Third, respond to their feeling, not their words. If someone says, "You never listen to me," they're not really making a factual claim. They're expressing frustration about feeling unheard. Fourth, validate before you correct. "I can see that you're frustrated, and I want to understand why," comes before any explanation or defense. Fifth, slow down the conversation. When emotions are high, people feel rushed to resolve everything immediately. Give yourself and them permission to take time. But let me ask you this. Think about the last time you stayed calm during a heated moment. How did the other person eventually respond? Did your composure help them find their own calm? Did it lead to better understanding? Now think about a time when you lost your composure, How did that change the dynamic? Did it bring you closer to resolution or push you further from it? Calmness is contagious. When you stay grounded, you give others permission to do the same. When you remain steady, you become an anchor in their storm. But staying calm doesn't mean becoming passive. You can be calm and still advocate for yourself. You can be composed and still express your needs. You can be peaceful and still set boundaries. The difference is how you do it. Calm advocacy sounds like, I understand you're upset, and I need you to understand my perspective too. Calm boundary setting sounds like, I want to work this out with you, and I need us to lower our voices to do that. Here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop trying to control the situation and start controlling yourself, you actually gain more influence. People trust calm people. They listen to steady voices. They follow composed leaders. Starting today, practice emotional composure. When you feel tension rising, remember that your response will determine the direction of the relationship. Take a breath. Lower your voice. Listen deeply. Respond thoughtfully. Stay present to the person, not just the problem. Because in a world where everyone seems to be losing their calm, the person who keeps their composure becomes a source of safety and strength. Your ability to stay centered in chaos will become one of your greatest relationship assets. And the people who feel safe with you in their worst moments will trust you with their best ones too. Names aren't just labels. They're invitations. You'll learn how remembering and using someone's name builds instant warmth and familiarity. The sweetest sound in any language is the sound of your own name spoken with care. Think about it. When someone remembers your name and uses it naturally, in conversation, how does it make you feel? Seen? Important? Valued? Now think about when someone forgets your name or gets it wrong. How does that feel? Dismissed? Overlooked? Unimportant? Names carry identity. They hold history. They represent the person's entire existence. When you remember and use someone's name, you're not just being polite, you're acknowledging their humanity. Most people underestimate the power of names. They introduce themselves quickly and forget just as fast. They use generic terms like nobody, friend, or you instead of the person's actual name. But the people who master relationships understand this secret. A person's name is the most important word in their vocabulary. I'd learned this from a restaurant server in a small town. Within minutes of meeting our family, she had learned all our names, mine, my wife's, and both our children's. Throughout the entire meal, she used our names naturally. How is everything tasting, Mr. Carnegie? Would you like more coffee? Mrs. Carnegie? Are you enjoying your meal, Sarah? By the end of dinner, we felt like we'd been dining with a friend, not being served by a stranger. She had transformed a simple business transaction into a personal connection, all through the power of names. That server earned more than just a good tip that night. She earned our loyalty, our respect, and our recommendation to others. Here's what most people don't understand. Using someone's name doesn't just make them feel good, it makes them feel connected to you. When you use someone's name, you're saying, you matter enough for me to remember who you are. You're creating instant familiarity. You're building a bridge between stranger and friend. But there's a right way and a wrong way to use names. The wrong way feels forced, artificial, or manipulative. Like when salespeople overuse your name in an obvious attempt to create false intimacy. Well, John, let me tell you why this car is perfect for you, John. You see, John, what you need is the right way feels natural, warm, and genuine. Names should flow into conversation like they belong there, not like they're being inserted for effect. So, how do you use names powerfully without being obvious about it? First, make remembering names a priority. When someone introduces themselves, repeat their name immediately. Nice to meet you, Sarah. This helps cement it in your memory and shows you're paying attention. Second, use their name early in the conversation. Don't wait until the end to throw it in. The sooner you use it naturally, the more connected the conversation becomes. Third, use names at key moments. when you're making an important point, when you're asking for their opinion, when you're thanking them for something. What do you think about that, Michael? I really appreciate your help with this, Lisa. Fourth, be careful not to overuse it. Once or twice in a normal conversation is perfect. More than that starts to feel calculated. But let me ask you this. How often do you actually use people's names when you talk to them? How often do you call your spouse by name during conversation? How often do you use your children's names when you're talking with them, not just to them? We tend to use names most when we're upset. David, come here right now. And least when we're simply connecting. But it should be the opposite. Using someone's name during regular conversation creates warmth and intimacy. It makes even casual interactions feel more personal and meaningful. Here's the beautiful truth. Everyone wants to feel known and remembered. In a world where people often feel anonymous and indivisible, the person who remembers and uses names stands out immediately. Your waiter, your cashier, your coworker, your neighbor, they all have names. They all want to be seen as individuals, not just functions. When you make the effort to learn and use their names, you're giving them a gift. The gift of recognition, the gift of importance, the gift of being treated like a person, not just a role. And here's what happens when you become known as someone who remembers names. People gravitate toward you. They feel comfortable with you. They trust you more quickly. They see you as someone who cares about people, not just tasks. Starting today, make names a priority. When you meet someone new, focus on their name like it's the most important information they could share with you, because in many ways, it is. Practice using names naturally in conversation. Notice how it changes the dynamic. Watch how people's faces light up when they hear their own name spoken with care, because a person's name is the gateway to their heart. And when you honor that gateway, you honor the person behind it. Want to connect? Reflect what others value. Discover the subtle art of aligning with someone's priorities to build natural rapport. Every person you meet has a hierarchy of values, things that matter most to them, principles they live by, priorities that guide their decisions. Most people never discover what those values are. They assume everyone shares their own priorities. They talk about what matters to them without finding out what matters to others. But the people who master relationships do something different. They listen for values. They notice what lights people up and what shuts them down. They discover what drives someone and what drains them, and then they mirror it back. I learned this from a business meeting that completely changed my approach to relationships. I was trying to convince a potential partner to work with me. I spent an hour talking about profits, efficiency, and market opportunities. He listened politely but seemed unengaged. Nothing I said sparked interest. I was losing him and didn't know why. Finally, frustrated, I stopped talking about business and asked, "What made you get into this industry in the first place?" His whole demeanor changed. His eyes lit up. He leaned forward. I wanted to create something that would help families stay connected. My father traveled constantly when I was young, and I rarely saw him. I promised myself I'd build something that brings people together instead of pulling them apart. In that moment, I understood what mattered to him. Not profits or efficiency, impact, not market share, meaning not what the business could do for him, what it could do for families. I adjusted my approach completely. Instead of talking about financial returns, I talked about how our partnership could strengthen families. Instead of discussing market opportunities, I discussed the legacy we could create together. By the end of that meeting, we had the foundation of a partnership that lasted for years. That's what happens when you mirror what matters to someone. You don't just connect with their interests, you connect with their heart. But here's what most people don't understand. Mirroring values isn't about agreeing with everything someone believes. It's about honoring what they care about. You don't have to share their exact priorities to respect their priorities. You don't have to adopt their values to acknowledge their values. So how do you discover what matters most to someone? First, listen for energy shifts. When does their voice get excited? When do they speak with passion? When do their eyes light up? These moments reveal what they value. Second, notice what they complain about. People don't just complain about random things. They complain when their values are violated. If someone complains about unfairness, they value justice. If they complain about inefficiency, they value productivity. Third, pay attention to how they spend their time and money. Values aren't just what people say they believe, they're what people actually invest in. Fourth, ask value-revealing questions. What's most important to you in your work? What gets you excited about this project? What would have to be true for this to feel like a success to you? But let me ask you this. Think about the people you feel most connected to. What values do you share? How do they show respect for what matters to you? Now think about relationships that feel strained or difficult. Are you honoring what matters to them? Are you trying to force your values on them instead of finding common ground? Here's the beautiful truth. When you mirror what matters to someone, you create instant rapport. Not because you're being fake, but because you're showing that you see them, understand them, and respect what drives them. If someone values family, talk about how decisions affect their loved ones. If someone values creativity, explore the innovative aspects of your ideas. If someone values security, address how your proposal reduces risk. If someone values honesty, be direct and transparent. If someone values harmony, approach disagreements gently. If someone values achievement, focus on goals and results. This isn't manipulation, it's communication. You're speaking their language. You're connecting through their priorities. You're building bridges through shared values. But here's the most important part. This only works if it's genuine. You can't fake caring about what someone values. You have to find the authentic connection between what matters to them and what you're discussing. Starting today, become a value detective. In every conversation, listen for clues about what drives the other person. What do they care about most? What are their non-negotiables? What would they never compromise on? Then find ways to honor those values in how you communicate, what you suggest, and how you approach your relationship with them. Because when you show someone that you understand and respect what matters most to them, you become someone who matters to them, and that's where lasting connections are born. The people who change relationships are the ones who lead emotionally. Be the first to empathize, and you'll be the first to be trusted. Most people approach relationships like a transaction. I'll understand you if you understand me first. I'll be kind to you if you're kind to me first. I'll listen to you if you listen to me first. They wait for the other person to make the first move, to extend the first olive branch, to show vulnerability first. But the people who transform relationships understand a different truth. Someone has to go first, and it might as well be you. Leadership isn't just about managing people or running organizations. It's about being willing to lead emotionally in every relationship you have. Emotional leadership means being the first to understand instead of demanding to be understood, being the first to apologize instead of waiting for an apology, being the first to show grace instead of requiring it. I learned this during a conflict with my brother that lasted for months. We had disagreed about a family decision, and both of us felt misunderstood and unheard. Both of us were waiting for the other to reach out first. Pride kept us apart. Stubbornness maintained the distance. We were both so focused on being right that we forgot about being related. Finally, I realized something. This standoff could last forever if someone didn't choose to lead. So I picked up the phone. I didn't call to prove my point or defend my position. I called to understand his perspective. "Help me see this situation through your eyes," I said. "I want to understand why you feel the way you feel." For the first time in months, he opened up. He shared fears I didn't know he had. He expressed concerns I hadn't considered. He revealed pain I hadn't recognized. And something beautiful happened. When he felt truly understood, he became curious about my perspective. When I led with empathy, he responded with empathy. That conversation didn't just end our conflict. It deepened our relationship. We understood each other better than we had in years. But here's what most people don't understand. Leading with. Understanding doesn't mean agreeing with everything someone says or does. It means seeking to comprehend their experience before asking them to comprehend yours. Stephen Covey said it perfectly. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Not because the other person deserves it more than you do, but because understanding creates the foundation for a connection. When you understand someone's perspective, you can communicate with them more effectively. When you grasp their concerns, you can address them more thoughtfully. When you see their point of view, you can find common ground more easily. So, how do you lead with understanding? First, ask questions that invite explanation, not justification. Instead of, "Why would you do that?" try, "Help me understand what led to that decision." Instead of, "How could you think that?" try, "What experiences shaped that perspective?" Second, listen for the story behind the statement. When someone shares an opinion, they're revealing something about their history, their fears, their hopes, or their values. Listen for the deeper narrative. Third, validate their experience before sharing your own. "That must have been really difficult," or "I can see why you'd feel that way," doesn't mean you agree. It means you acknowledge their reality. Fourth, show curiosity about their world. Ask follow-up questions. Seek to understand not just what they think, but why they think it. Not just what they feel, but why they feel it. But let me ask you this. Think about a relationship in your life that needs healing. Are you waiting for the other person to understand you first? Are you holding back your empathy until they show theirs? What would happen if you led with understanding instead? What if you made the first move toward connection? Here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop demanding to be understood and start seeking to understand, people naturally want to understand you in return. When you lead with empathy, you inspire empathy. But this requires courage. It means being vulnerable first. It means risking being misunderstood while you work to understand others. It means sometimes swallowing your pride and choosing connection over being right. Starting today, practice emotional leadership. In your next conflict, be the first to seek understanding. In your next disagreement, be the first to show empathy. In your next tense moment, be the first to extend grace. Don't wait for others to create the relationship dynamic you want. Create it yourself, because the people who lead with understanding don't just have better relationships. They become the kind of people others trust with their deepest thoughts, fears, and dreams. And in a world where everyone wants to be heard, the person who leads with listening becomes incredibly powerful. Your willingness to understand others first will determine how deeply others trust you with their hearts. When you spotlight someone's strengths, they shine brighter, and so do you. Learn how to become a natural encourager without sounding fake. There's something magical that happens when you help someone discover their own brilliance. Their face lights up, their posture changes, their energy shifts. They become more of who they really are. Most people are walking around unaware of their own gifts. They see their flaws clearly, but their strengths dimly. They know what they're bad at, but remain blind to what they're good at. But you have the power to change that. With your words, your attention, and your genuine appreciation, you can help people see themselves differently. You can become someone who helps others shine. I learned this from a manager who changed my entire career trajectory. I was young, inexperienced, and struggling with confidence. I made mistakes regularly and questioned whether I belonged in that role. One day, after I had stumbled through a presentation, I expected criticism. Instead, she pulled me aside and said, "I noticed something about you. When you tell stories, people lean in. When you explain complex ideas through examples, everyone understands. You have a gift for making difficult concepts accessible. That's rare." She saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. She identified a strength I didn't know I possessed. She gave language to a talent I hadn't recognized. From that moment forward, I approached my work differently. I leaned into storytelling. I focused on making complex ideas simple. I built my career around the strength she helped me discover. That's what happens when you help people see their gifts. You don't just make them feel good, you help them become who they're meant to be. But here's what most people don't understand. Spotlighting someone's strengths isn't about flattery or false praise. It's about paying attention to what's already there and reflecting it back to them. Everyone has unique gifts. Everyone has natural talents. Everyone has ways of thinking, feeling, or acting that create value in the world. Your job isn't to invent strengths that don't exist. Your job is to notice strengths that do exist, but might be hidden, underdeveloped, or unrecognized. So how do you help people shine authentically? First, look for natural patterns. What comes easily to them that seems difficult for others? What do they do without thinking that creates positive results? What energizes them while it drains other people? Second, notice their unique perspective. How do they see situations differently? What insights do they offer that others miss? What questions do they ask that reveal wisdom? Third, observe their impact on others. How do people respond when they're around? What changes in the room when they speak? What do others seek them out for? Fourth, identify their character strengths. Are they naturally patient, courageous, creative, analytical, compassionate, or determined? Character strengths are often more valuable than skill strengths. But let me ask you this. When was the last time someone helped you see a strength you didn't know you had? How did that change how you saw yourself? How did it affect your confidence and your choices? Now think about the people in your life. Your spouse, your children, your friends, your coworkers. What strengths do they have that they might not fully recognize? What gifts do they possess that could be developed further? Here's the beautiful truth. When you help someone discover their strengths, you create a powerful bond. They don't just feel appreciated, they feel seen at a deeper level. And when people feel truly seen by you, they want to be around you, they trust you, they value your opinion. They become invested in your success because you've been invested in theirs. But spotlighting strengths only works when it's specific and genuine. Don't just say, "You're great." Say, "The way you stayed calm during that crisis and helped everyone." Focus on solutions. That's real leadership. Don't just say, "You're smart." Say, "The way you break down complex problems into manageable steps helps everyone understand what needs to be done." Don't just say, "You're nice." Say, "The way you remember small details about people's lives and check in on them makes everyone feel cared for." Starting today, become a strength spotter. Look for the gifts in the people around you. Notice what they do well. Pay attention to their unique contributions, then reflect those strengths back to them, not as empty compliments, but as genuine observations about who they are and what they bring to the world. Because in a culture that focuses on fixing what's wrong, the person who celebrates what's right becomes a source of hope and healing. Your ability to see and speak to people's strengths will make you unforgettable. And the people who shine brighter because of your encouragement will never forget how you helped them discover their own light. Connection doesn't come from long speeches. It comes from well-placed words. Learn to speak with intention and let silence do the rest. In a world full of noise, the power belongs to those who speak with purpose. Most people talk too much. They fill every silence with words. They explain when they should pause. They elaborate when they should stop. They think more words equal more impact. They're wrong. The most powerful communicators understand this truth. It's not about how much you say, it's about how much your words matter. I learned this from watching a master negotiator handle a tense business meeting. For 2 hours, people argued, defended, and explained. Words flew like arrows. Tempers flared, positions hardened. Then he spoke. Just one sentence. What if we all want the same thing, and we're just talking past each other? The room went silent. Everyone stopped, they thought. And in that pause, the entire dynamic shifted. One sentence did what 2 hours of arguments couldn't accomplish. It created space for understanding. That's the power of saying less, but meaning more. But here's what most people don't understand. Powerful communication isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions. It's not about filling silence. It's about using silence strategically. Words have more impact when they're surrounded by space. Ideas land harder when they're not buried under explanation. Truth resonates deeper when it's allowed to breathe. Think about the most memorable conversations you've had. Were they filled with constant chatter, or were there moments of silence that let important words sink in? The people who connect deeply understand that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop talking and let your words work. So, how do you speak with intention? First, pause before you speak. Ask yourself, what's the most important thing I want to communicate right now? Then say that thing clearly and stop. Second, resist the urge to fill every silence. When you say something meaningful, give it space to be received. Don't immediately pile more words on top of it. Third, choose quality over quantity. One thoughtful question often creates more connection than 10 casual comments. Fourth, let your words carry weight. Speak when you have something valuable to add, not just when you want to be heard. But let me ask you this. Think about your recent conversations. How often did you speak just to fill silence? How often did you explain something that was already clear? How often did you say more when less would have been better? Now think about the conversations where you felt truly connected. Were they filled with non-stop talking? Or were there moments of comfortable silence where understanding deepened? Here's the beautiful truth. When you speak less, but mean more, people listen more carefully. Your words carry more weight. Your opinions matter more. Your questions create more thought, but this requires confidence. Confidence to let silence exist. Confidence that your words are worth waiting for. Confidence that you don't need to fill every gap in conversation. Many people talk too much because they're afraid of awkward silence, afraid that others will think they're boring, afraid that if they don't keep talking, they'll lose people's attention. But the opposite is true. When you speak with intention, people pay more attention, not less. When you're comfortable with silence, others become comfortable too. When you say less but mean more, every word becomes valuable. This doesn't mean becoming silent or withdrawn. It means being strategic about when and how you contribute to conversations. Speak up when you have insight to offer. Ask questions when you're genuinely curious. Share stories when they'll help others understand. But don't speak just to fill space or prove you're engaged. Here's what happens when you master this principle. People start seeking your opinion because they know it will be thoughtful. They listen more carefully when you speak because your words typically matter. They feel more comfortable sharing with you because you're not constantly trying to top their stories or fix their problems. Starting today, practice intentional communication. Before you speak, ask yourself, will these words add value to this conversation? Is this the most important thing I could say right now? Would silence be more powerful than speech? Let your words be like salt. A little goes a long way, but it makes everything better. Because in a world where everyone is talking, the person who speaks with intention becomes impossible to ignore. Your words will have more power when you use fewer of them, and your silence will speak volumes about your wisdom. Sometimes you need to offer feedback. This chapter shows how to deliver truth gently so your message is heard and your connection stays strong. There are moments in every relationship when you need to address something difficult. A mistake that needs correcting, a behavior that needs changing, a truth that needs telling. These moments test everything you've learned about connection. They reveal whether you truly care about the person or just about being right. They show whether you can deliver hard truths with soft hearts. Most people handle these moments poorly. They either avoid them completely, letting problems fester, or they handle them harshly, damaging the relationship in the process of trying to fix the issue. But there's a third way, a way to deliver feedback that actually strengthens relationships instead of straining them. A way to correct without crushing. I learned this from a mentor who had to give me some of the hardest feedback of my career. I had made a significant mistake that cost our organization time and money. I expected anger, criticism, maybe even termination. Instead, he invited me to lunch. He started by asking about my family, my goals, my concerns. He made it clear that he cared about me as a person, not just as an employee. Then he said, "I need to talk with you about what happened yesterday. But first, I want you to know that I believe in you. This mistake doesn't define you, but we do need to address it so it doesn't happen again." He went on to explain the impact of my error, not to shame me, but to help me understand the bigger picture. He asked questions that helped me see what I could have done differently. He offered support for preventing similar issues in the future. By the end of that conversation, I felt corrected but not crushed, educated but not humiliated, challenged but not condemned. That's what skillful feedback does. It addresses the issue while preserving the person. But here's what most people don't understand. The goal of feedback isn't to make someone feel bad about what they did wrong. The goal is to help them do better next time. When you approach correction with that mindset, everything changes. You're not attacking, you're helping. You're not punishing, you're teaching. You're not tearing down, you're building up. So how do you correct without crushing? First, start with care, not criticism. Before you address the issue, make sure the person knows you're on their side. I care about you and our relationship, which is why I want to talk about this. Second, focus on behavior, not character. Don't say you're irresponsible. Say, this particular action had consequences we need to discuss. Attack the problem, not the person. Third, be specific, not general. Don't say, you always do this. Say, yesterday when this happened, here's what I observed. Specific feedback can be addressed. General criticism just feels overwhelming. Fourth, explain the impact. Don't just express frustration. Help them understand why the issue matters. When deadlines are missed, it affects the whole team's ability to deliver for our clients. Fifth, invite their perspective. Help me understand what happened from your point of view. There might be factors you don't know about. There might be legitimate reasons for what occurred. Sixth, focus on the future, not just the past. What do you think would help prevent this from happening again? Make it collaborative, not dictatorial. But let me ask you this. Think about the last time someone gave you difficult feedback. Did they make you feel defensive or receptive? Did they help you grow or make you want to hide? Did they preserve your dignity while addressing the issue? Now, think about feedback you've given to others. Did you correct the behavior while caring for the person? Did you address the issue while strengthening the relationship? Here's the beautiful truth. When people feel safe with you during difficult conversations, they trust you more, not less. When you can deliver hard truths with kindness, people see you as someone who genuinely cares about their growth. But this requires emotional maturity. It means managing your own frustration while helping someone else process theirs. It means caring more about their development than about venting your disappointment. Starting today, practice gentle correction. When you need to address an issue with someone, ask yourself, how can I handle this in a way that helps them grow while preserving our relationship? Remember, the people who can deliver truth with love become trusted advisors. The people who can correct without crushing become sources of wisdom and growth. Your ability to give feedback skillfully will determine whether people run from your honesty or seek it out. Because in a world where people either avoid difficult conversations or handle them badly, the person who can speak truth with love becomes invaluable. Life happens in the little things. Learn how to use eye contact, simple gestures, and unexpected kindness to strengthen relationships daily. Relationships aren't built in grand gestures. They're built in small moments. A look, a touch, a word, a gesture, a choice to be present. When presence matters, Most people wait for big opportunities to show they care. They think relationships are strengthened through expensive gifts, elaborate vacations, or dramatic declarations of love. They miss the truth. It's the little things that create lasting bonds. The way you look at someone when they're talking, the way you remember their coffee order, the way you check in when they're going through a hard time, the way you celebrate their small wins. These moments seem insignificant, but they're not. They're the building blocks of trust, intimacy, and a connection. I learned this from observing my grandparents, who were married for 63 years. Their relationship didn't survive because of big romantic gestures. It thrived because of tiny daily choices. The way my grandfather still opened car doors for my grandmother after 6 decades together. The way she saved him the last piece of his favorite dessert. The way they looked at each other when one was telling a story they'd heard 100 times before. These weren't accidents. They were choices. Daily decisions to honor their connection through small acts of love and attention. That's what makes relationships extraordinary. Not the occasional grand gesture, but the consistent small ones. But here's what most people don't understand. These moments don't just happen. They're created by people who understand that every interaction is an opportunity to strengthen or weaken a relationship. Every time you see someone, you make a choice. You can be fully present or partially distracted. You can offer genuine attention or polite acknowledgement. You can create a moment that matters or let the moment pass by unnoticed. So how do you make moments matter? First, give your full presence. When someone is talking to you, put down your phone. Turn your body toward them. Make eye contact. Show them that right now, nothing is more important than this conversation. Second, notice the details. Remember what they mentioned yesterday. Ask about the meeting they were nervous about. Acknowledge the new haircut. Pay attention to what's different, what's troubling them, what's exciting them. Third, celebrate the small wins. Don't wait for major achievements to offer congratulations. Notice when they handle a difficult situation well. Acknowledge when they make a good choice. Recognize their daily efforts. Fourth, offer unexpected kindness. Bring them coffee when they didn't ask. Send an encouraging text when they're facing a challenge. Do something small that shows you were thinking about them. Fifth, be generous with physical touch when appropriate. A hand on the shoulder during a difficult conversation. A high five when they share good news. A hug when they need comfort. Touch communicates care in ways words sometimes can't. But let me ask you this. Think about the relationships that mean most to you. Are they defined by big moments or small ones? What are the tiny gestures that make you feel most loved and valued now? Think about how you show up in your daily interactions. Are you creating moments that matter? Are you giving people the gift of your full attention? Are you noticing opportunities to strengthen your connections? Here's the beautiful truth. When you consistently make small moments matter, people feel cherished. They feel important. They feel like they matter to you, not just during crises or celebrations, but in the ordinary rhythm of daily life. And that's where real intimacy lives. Not in the dramatic moments, but in the decision to be fully present for the mundane ones. Your spouse doesn't just need you during the big conversations. They need you during the small ones, too. Your children don't just need your attention during their major milestones. They need it during their daily stories. Your friends don't just need your support during their crises. They need your presence during their ordinary days. Starting today, look for moments to matter. In every interaction, ask yourself, how can I make this person feel valued right now? What small gesture could strengthen our connection? How can I show up fully in this moment? Because people don't remember what you said as much as they remember how you made them feel. And they feel most loved when you consistently choose to make their small moments feel important. Your ability to be present in the little things will determine the depth of your relationships and the people who feel cherished by you in ordinary moments will trust you with their extraordinary ones. Life is made up of moments. Make yours matter. Being vulnerable doesn't mean being weak. You'll learn how to be open without lowering your values and why that balance builds real respect. There's a fine line between being open and being foolish, between being vulnerable and being naive, between dropping your walls and abandoning your boundaries. Most people get this wrong. They think vulnerability means sharing everything with everyone. They believe openness requires saying yes to all requests. They assume that being real means having no standards, but that's not vulnerability. That's poor judgment. True vulnerability is selective courage. It's the wisdom to know when to open up and when to protect yourself. It's the strength to be real without being reckless. I learned this distinction during a difficult period in my career when I was struggling with self-doubt. I had two choices: pretend everything was fine or admit I was having a hard time. For months, I chose pretense. I maintained a perfect facade. I acted confident when I felt confused. I projected strength when I was struggling. I thought this was protecting my reputation. Actually, it was isolating me. People couldn't connect with my perfection. They couldn't relate to my false confidence. They couldn't help me because they didn't know I needed help. Finally, I decided to try a different approach. I began sharing my struggles selectively. With trusted colleagues, I admitted when I didn't have all the answers. With close friends, I revealed my insecurities. With my mentor, I confessed my fears about the future. Something remarkable happened. Instead of losing respect, I gained it. Instead of appearing weak, I seemed more human. Instead of pushing people away, I drew them closer. But here's the key. I didn't share my struggles with everyone. I didn't abandon my professional standards. I didn't become an emotional burden to others. I learned to be vulnerable strategically. That's what healthy vulnerability looks like. It's not about removing all your boundaries. It's about lowering them selectively with the right people at the right times. So how do you drop the guard without dropping your standards? First, choose your audience wisely. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Vulnerability should be earned through trust, demonstrated over time, and reciprocated appropriately. Second, start small. You don't need to share your deepest fears in your first conversation. Begin with smaller admissions of imperfection and see how people respond. Third, maintain your core values. Being vulnerable doesn't mean saying yes to everything. You can be open about your struggles while still maintaining clear boundaries about what you will and won't accept. Fourth, share your growth, not just your struggles. Vulnerability isn't just about admitting problems. It's about showing how you're working to overcome them. Fifth, be vulnerable with purpose. Ask yourself, will sharing this help me connect more deeply with this person? Will it help them feel less alone in their own struggles? Will it serve the relationship or just serve my need to be heard? But let me ask you this. Think about the relationships where you feel most accepted and understood. Are these relationships where you pretend to be perfect, or are they relationships where you can be real about your struggles, fears, and imperfections? Now, think about how others respond to you. Do people feel closer to you when you're vulnerable or when you're invulnerable? Do they trust you more when you admit you don't have all the answers or when you pretend you do? Here's the beautiful paradox. When you have the courage to show your imperfections, people trust you more with theirs. When you admit you're still learning, people feel safe learning alongside you. When you acknowledge your struggles, people feel permission to acknowledge theirs. But this only works when your vulnerability comes from strength, not weakness. When it's a choice to connect, not a compulsion to confess. When it serves the relationship, not just your need for validation. People respect vulnerability that's paired with responsibility. They admire openness that's balanced with wisdom. They trust authenticity that's grounded in character. Starting today, practice strategic vulnerability. Look for opportunities to be more real with the people who have earned your trust. Share your struggles in ways that create connection, not burden. Be honest about your imperfections while maintaining your integrity, because in a world full of perfect facades, The person who has the courage to be real becomes magnetic, and the people who feel safe being imperfect around you will become your most loyal allies. Your willingness to be vulnerable wisely will determine the depth of your relationships, and the people who see your authentic humanity will trust you with theirs. This final chapter reflects on the journey, 30 days of presence, kindness, and courage. Now, you don't just have better relationships, you've become the person who creates them. 30 days ago, you began a journey, not just to improve your relationships, but to become the kind of person who naturally creates deep, meaningful connections wherever you go. You've learned to listen with your whole attention, to ask questions that reveal hearts, not just facts, to speak life into people instead of criticism, to stay calm when emotions run high, to appreciate genuinely and specifically. You've discovered the power of names, the importance of understanding values, and the courage required to lead with empathy. You've practiced vulnerability without weakness, correction without crushing, and presence in small moments. But here's what I hope you've realized. This isn't really about techniques or strategies. It's about becoming someone different, someone who sees people more clearly, cares about them more deeply, and treats them more kindly. The skills you've learned will fade if you don't continue practicing them. But the person you've become, that's permanent. That's the real transformation. Think about where you started this journey. What relationships were struggling? What conversations felt difficult? What connections seemed impossible to repair? Now, think about where you are today. How have your interactions changed? How do people respond to you differently? How do you feel about your ability to connect with others? The change isn't just in your relationships, it's in you. You've become someone who notices what others miss, someone who remembers what matters to people, someone who makes others feel heard, valued, and understood. You've developed the ability to stay centered during conflict, to speak truth with love, and to create safety in conversations. You've learned to appreciate genuinely, to question curiously, and to listen deeply. These aren't just relationship skills, they're life skills, leadership skills, human skills. But here's what most people don't understand. This journey never really ends. Relationships aren't problems you solve once. They're gardens you tend daily. Every conversation is an opportunity to practice what you've learned. Every interaction is a chance to strengthen a connection. Every difficult moment is a test of your growth. The person you've become over these 30 days is just the beginning. The real question is, who will you become over the next 30 years if you keep growing in these areas? What would your marriage look like if you spent the next decade becoming an even better listener? What would your friendships become if you continued to appreciate people more specifically and generously? What would your professional relationships develop into if you kept practicing empathy and understanding? Let me ask you this. What has surprised you most about this journey? What have you learned about yourself that you didn't know before? What changes in your relationships have been most significant? And here's the most important question. What will you do differently tomorrow because of what you've learned over these 30 days? Because knowledge without application is worthless. Understanding without practice is empty. Learning without living is just entertainment. The principles you've learned work, but only if you work them. They transform relationships, but only if you continue applying them consistently. So here's my challenge for you. Don't let the next 30 days undo what you've built over the last 30. Don't go back to old patterns just because the official program is over. Make these practices part of who you are. Make listening deeply your default. Make appreciating specifically your habit. Make understanding others your mission. Choose to be the person who remembers names and values what matters to people. Choose to be the one who stays calm during storms and speaks life into others. Choose to be someone who creates connection instead of waiting for it. The world needs more people like the person you've become. People who see others clearly, treat them kindly, and help them feel valued. Your family needs the person you've become. Your friends need your improved listening and deeper understanding. Your coworkers need your ability to stay calm and communicate clearly, and you need to keep becoming this person. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Not because relationships are simple, but because connection is essential. Starting tomorrow, wake up with the same intention you've carried for the last 30 days, to show up as someone who makes relationships better, because you don't just have better relationships now, you've become the person who creates them. And that changes everything. You already have what it takes. Now go prove it.